So the mantra of this podcast is, never too high, never too low. And I've done my best to toe that line. I will get back to being like that as we get further away from the Europa League final, as we go through the summer and United make some difficult decisions, which might have got a lot easier with what we saw in the Europa League final against Tottenham. But this is a tough one. This is a really, really difficult one because I don't think there has been a lower moment than that. I think letting a game, letting a final, letting a chance for redemption to a degree, letting that get out of jail free card, letting it slip through your fingers, not because of there was a lot of things wrong. I think United had a plan and they followed it. I just think it was the wrong plan. But the lack of urgency was incredibly telling. And I think that is it's such a difficult one to swallow. It really is, because we've been through this season where United are 16th and they've lost 18 Premier League games. They'll probably lose this weekend as well. What that'll be interesting, United playing at home to Aston Villa and then going on a tour on the other side of the world to get an extra 8 million quid or whatever it is, because god damn they need it at the moment. This is as low, I think, as I hope it will ever get, because it can't be any worse than this. It simply can't. United have to make this the line in the sand and move up from here. How do they do that? I don't know. There's a lot of difficult decisions that I don't think anybody really wanted to face that will have to be faced over the course of the summer. That has to be that was abject, to say the least. It was everybody. There's nobody in this team, nobody in this football club who contributes to what happens on the pitch, who can escape any blame for what happened in the Europa League final. It was absolutely abject, pathetic, shocking, and I'm very much, like I say, on the never too high, never too low mantra, and that will remain. But you might have to allow me just one where frustration needs to be expressed. I'll try and do it in my own way, because I'm never one for shouting and screaming. I don't, as angry as I felt after that, I'm not going to come out here and shout and swear and all this kind of thing. But you just feel so low and helpless after a moment like that, and 90 minutes like that, especially after a season like United have had. It has to be. That has to be it. That has to be it. It can't get any worse than this. But all signs point to, where do United go from here? And that's something that I'll get onto in future episodes in more depth. But it's important to let this one stew and reflect on it. This is as bad as I think it's ever been for a lot of people, especially people my age and maybe a little bit older than me as well. United have been so bad for the last decade, but to allow an opportunity like that to squirm away is unforgivable. This is the Promised Land podcast. The name is the Promised Land. Obviously, it's charting United's path back to that moment of United have reached the Promised Land. I've said it a few times this year and over the last few years, but United are further away from that moment and further away from that than they have ever been. And I think that is as true now as it's ever been. But subscribe to the channel, Apple, Spotify, follow me on social as well at __ Scott Saunders. Get in the comments and let me know your thoughts. It's not a time for, I think you can let rationale kind of go out the window in moments like this, because at the end of the day, this is a football club that means a hell of a lot to people, and that emotional attachment is the most important thing. I didn't go out, but people have spent hundreds, if not thousands of pounds going to watch that match to back people spend their money every year on tickets going to watch that team as they turn in turgid performance after turgid performance. And they have some have slept on park benches, some have slept rough in general, some just haven't slept at all, and they've found just. I hope people at least went out there to Bilbao and got something out of the trip because from what I have never been, but it looks like a lovely city, and I hope that you, if you were out there, enjoyed it because you wouldn't have enjoyed the game. At least get something out of that. But uh, for the players, for the collective, for the Manchester United collective to turn in a performance like that on a night like that, that has to be it. All of that, I've said this a few times, but all of that ruthlessness that has been shown across the entire club, cutting hundreds of staff at a certain time, staff who have only gone in there and done their jobs day to day to the best of their ability, only to be told, we don't need you anymore, you're out, we need to cut costs because this lot on the pitch are failing over and over again. That ruthlessness simply has to be put through. But I've said this a few times, like, and there is a cancer inside Manchester United. There is a cancer inside Manchester United, and the only way that you can recover from that is by cutting it out, like getting it out and trying to recover from that point. It is identifying it is the problem. You know, you've seen players playing a Manchester United shirt carry the weight of it and underperform, and then leave the club and go somewhere else, get out of that pressure cooker, and find a new lease of life. I'm sure there will be players that leave this summer that are follow that same path, but God, blimey, this is as. Let me know how low this is. This is as low as I've ever felt in the sense of supporting, following United. It just seems like helplessness, and even like where do you point the blame on that? Now I think it's a blame as a collective, but I have defended Ruben Amorim for a long time, and I ultimately I still think that United should stick with him because I feel like he has a number of he insists anyway that he can see what needs to change. He sees what the problems are within the club. I think a lot of that is energy and urgency and fight and desire. I think a lot of that is lacking, and we saw that on the pitch. But he got this wrong. Absolutely, absolutely got this wrong. And the game plan was there. I think it was controlling possession, controlling the game, controlling territory, but Tottenham were happy to just sit in. Ange Postecoglou has been criticised for not having a plan B throughout his 2 years at Tottenham when it's not been going well, but Ange Postecoglou set his team out to win the game. Winning the game was more important than having having an identity. And I feel like Ruben Amorim on that night, as much as winning that competition will not ultimately change everything. It'll change the mood, obviously, and it'll allow United to pocket somewhere near in the region of 100 million quid in order to accelerate this rebuild or whatever needs to happen. But the lack of reaction from Ruben Amorim to what the game state was, there were a few red flags for me on that night. There were a few red flags to see at 60, 70 minutes or however long it was, to see no substitution when the game was clearly in a pattern where United were having a lot of the ball, but ultimately not really doing much with it. There was no speed in possession. There was no urgency. Tottenham were happy to sit in. And it's difficult to break teams like that down, and United have a lot of problems breaking teams like that down. But change something. It's a final. Change it earlier. And we'll talk about maybe Alejandro Garnacho briefly in this show, and there's definitely more meat on the bone there to talk about maybe in a future episode. But he came on and instantly injected a bit of pace into the game. And you think, I look at him and I think you don't really fit the system that Amorim is trying to build. And I think Maybe that was a reason why he wasn't in the 11 and waited so long to get on the pitch. But it's a final. You have to in a final at all costs. The most important thing is winning the game. I don't give a damn how you do it. I don't care how you do it. Just win the game. And it was so kind of difficult to stomach that Manchester United on that night had a manager that would prefer to stick to his ideals rather than winning the game. I think there's definitely a time to throughout the entire season, and what United will have to do over the course of the if look, I think Amarim will stay. Who knows at this point? I don't think anything is off the table. I think he will stay. I think it's the right thing for him to stay. But at the same time, because where do United turn next? But he will need to get that plan across. He will need to work on it. United will need to build an identity. But that is a next season thing. That has been an in-season thing in the Premier League. And that's why we've gone through all of the difficulty, all of the defeats, all of the abject performances in the Premier League is because United have been trying to get to grips with what Ruben Amorim has wanted to do with the system that he's playing. In a final, the most important thing is winning the game. I don't give a damn how you do it. I don't care how you do it. And I've always been in. I've criticized Pep Guardiola in the past. He eventually got over the line for when he decided to change things, and he changed the way that he was playing when he realized the style of football that he was playing in latter stages of tournaments, specifically the Champions League before City won it. He was so live by the sword, die by the sword that he would stay with that system even if it meant the team losing. And I gave him so much criticism for that previously. That is not the way that you win finals. You have to identify the situation. You have to inject a bit of life. And Amorim got a lot wrong for me on that night. I'm not going to sit there and criticize the team selection because it's so easy to do that in hindsight. You can say, yeah, Bruno should have played in the 10. Maybe you were in the camp of Bruno should be playing in the 10 from the beginning, and other players should have started and you should have put Ahmad right wing back and this kind of thing. I had no issue with the lineup that he picked, and it's very easy in hindsight to criticize it because it didn't work. What bothered me on that night was there was a lot of things, obviously, but what bothered me specifically was acting to change it so late. United, for what it's worth, had more possession. They were in control of the football, but I don't think you can look at the stats, and the stats, everything but the scoreline, the stats favour United, obviously. But it's not a night on a game to look at that stats board and say that we were the better team. The better team is the team that wins in a final. It simply is. And there will be a time and a place for Ruben Amorim and for Manchester United to work on that system and live by it and die by it. But it was just a red flag. I like to see managers who are not too proud to change things. He has an idea. He keeps saying it. And I do think that his mantra and the things that he wants to live by and the messages that he's getting across will be really important in order to rebuild United from this absolute disaster of a position that they're in. That is the most important thing. But in a final, you just have to win, and United didn't. United barely. They created some chances. Obviously, they had a shot cleared off the line from Rasmus Højlund, his header, but they didn't do enough. They let it pass them by. The amount of times where United were in possession, just passing it round their back three, looking for like a small gap to appear in order to exploit it. They weren't quick enough to do that anyway. They wasted a lot of time just passing the ball back and forth. I think it took, and you don't really want to be in a position where you're throwing Harry Maguire up front. That just is alarm bells that should be ringing every single time after that, if that happens. But it's a final. Get back in the game, score your goal as soon as you possibly can. Don't wait till the last 5 minutes. But yeah, Ruben Amorim has said, I'll walk without compensation if the club decide that is the path that they want to take. For what it's worth, I did a show about don't lose faith in Ruben Amorim a week or two ago. Still stand by that. I still think that he has the right minerals within him, the right streak of ruthlessness within him to fix the culture. I do think that that's still there for me. But look, if you're in the camp of Ruben Amorim is not good enough for this, nobody can argue with that at the moment. His record is abysmal, absolutely abysmal, and there is nothing for me that is off the table at this point. You can't defend any of it. You can't defend any of it. And it's look, there are so many players who perform badly. I think Lenny Yoro, of all there weren't many positives, but I think Lenny Yoro is a standout, and United have got a good one there. But you just think how long until the mess and the mire that is Manchester United that eats everybody up gets to him as well. Said that about Bruno Fernandes a few years ago when he came in and had that instant impact. It's got to him. At the end of the day, United need to change that. They need to rid themselves of that cultural issue that they have, but they don't really have much room for maneuver at the moment. And that's why I've been warning for a good few weeks now about an unpopular sale or two. What happens at the end of this competition if United don't get into the Champions League? There are some opportunities that you can take out of this by not being in Europe, but at the end of the day, United have to be in the Champions League, and they're not. The situation is what the situation is, and United have to act accordingly and use that free time to their advantage. But in order to get to the other side and to reinvest in this team, those unpopular sales, those unpopular decisions, I thought there'd be one, at least. Possibly more than that now. I think there aren't many players in this team that are absolute must-keeps for me. I look at Yoro and I think, yes, absolutely. I like Ahmad, obviously. Kobbie Mainoo's the one for me that I think that one will really sting. Will really, really sting. And the fact that United have got to a point where the lad from the academy who scored, well, two academy players scored in the FA Cup final last year, right? Garnacho and Mainoo. The fact that United have got to a point, and Ruben Amorim has got to a point where he's sticking Kobbie Mainoo on, a game changer in the 89th minute, is a massive problem. And that signals to me that United don't really know what to do with him at the moment because there is not a natural fit for him in this system. United need to find it. Or do they? Because the position that they're in now, you all know their FFP issues and there's a big old hole in their books. And the way to make that up and the way to go about getting yourself into a better position in the books and being able to reinvest, there have to be big sales. And unfortunately, all of the players that are on massive wages, the ones that are more difficult to shift, will still be more difficult to shift. So you look at the players that probably have the most favor with the supporters. Bruno Fernandes has said himself, I'll get to him in a second, just after the break. Bruno Fernandes has said himself that if the club decide to sell me because they want to cash in or whatever, it is what it is. There's no real book value on him, so United can. God, what an awful, awful conversation, an awful way for this to go. But if they get an offer, expect that one. I expect it. If you're not expecting it, if you weren't expecting it before the game, I would gear up. I would really gear up for that. Garnacho, I think that deal is as good as. I don't think there's any coming back from what the fallout was of that last night in terms of Alejandro Garnacho. No book value on him. Obviously, United were looking for 60 odd million in January. I would imagine that they will try and pull that off over the course of the summer wherever he goes. Mainoo's the one, man. Mainoo is the one. I worry. I really worry. if you're looking at him and thinking, there's not much you can do, so we're going to chuck you on the 89th. Blimey. Somebody, if that is the way that it goes, somebody is going to be getting a hell of a footballer there, and he's going to have a fantastic career. And it'll be one of the most difficult ones to swallow. It really will. I don't think anybody wants to see that happen. But this is the position that United are in. This is the position that United are in. And there's lots to run through. I could talk all day, to be honest. I'm going to try and not be. Well, I can't get into everything on one episode. Obviously, there's just some raw thoughts immediately after the game. But I'll be back in a second because there's plenty of stuff that went down. How much do we need to talk about the game? We've seen it all before, right? You've seen it before. You've seen United fail to be able to break down a defense. You've seen teams sit in and nick a crap goal against them. I'll come back and talk about that in a second, just after this break. All right, welcome back again. Sorry, guys, if this is not the never too high, never. You have to allow me this one. This is low, and there are ways that United can go around fixing this, but it's important to establish at this point feelings and express it. You have to criticize when criticism is warranted, and the way that they let that game go, criticism, all of it, everything should be going their way, from the owners right through the team. And I think there were some quotes coming out of the mixed zone last night from certain players. Luke Shaw, Alejandro Garnacho's had his say. Bruno Fernandes, as I've said, has had his say as well. I'll just spend my time maybe in the second half of the show just running through what they've said. Luke Shaw, probably the most depressed interview I've ever seen from a football player after a game. Has a habit of doing that, but he said, we all have to question ourselves if we're good enough to be here. And he said that in the mix zone. Diogo Dalot has said something similar. And I looked at that and I thought, that's the attitude that's within this football team at the moment. Doubt, uncertainty. Luke Shaw's been at the club for 11 years. And United's fall has coincided, most of it has coincided with, like, I'm not pinning it on Luke Shaw, but Luke Shaw has seen all of this. He's seen it all unfold. He's seen the demise unfold. If you're doubting that you're not good enough and you've had 11 years to establish that you are and you haven't worked that out yet, it's probably a red flag. And Luke Shaw, I feel for him. Obviously, I think he's had a lot of difficulties with injuries. But if you truly, what do you want? If you truly give a damn, you wouldn't willingly sit there on that amount of money. What do you care about? Obviously, everybody cares about their own situation, their own well-being, this kind of thing. But to sit there and there will no doubt be players over the course of this summer that are sitting on their contracts because they're getting a pretty hefty wage out of this United. Then they'll come out and say, we're really sorry after. Some concessions will need to be taken. If you give a damn, if you really give a damn and you want to see this club back, your actions speak louder than words. You deliver on the football pitch or you get out. And I'm sure that there will be players in this team over the course of the summer that sit on their contracts and are just willing to see them out, even if it means that they stick with this sinking ship. Or the more players that do that, and obviously this will be something that we talk about over the course of the next few weeks and months, the more players that do that, the more difficult it will be for United to get themselves out of the situation. So some concessions will need to be taken by the players, but you can think, why should they? It depends. Depends what they care about more. I think there's a lot of players in this team that have had their chances and continually not delivered. I haven't really got much time for that kind of thing at the moment anymore. Alejandro Garnacho is a really interesting one on the night because I think Amarim and his decision not to start him, I wasn't surprised that he didn't start. I know that there were some people that were, but I did feel like he would have been a better option off the bench. When I was trying to predict the 11, I was pretty close to what came out in the end. I thought he would probably have been better as an impact sub coming off the bench, but he evidently must have found out earlier in the day, or maybe the night before, that he wasn't in the starting 11. You then get a social media post on his Instagram story of him scoring a goal in the FA Cup final last year. Then you get his brother coming out, that his brother again coming out and saying, working like nobody else, helping every round, coming from 2 goals in the last 2 finals just to be on the pitch for 19 minutes to get thrown under the bus. Wow, ha 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 ha. That was a post from his brother. And look, he's right. They're right in the situation. He's every right to feel aggrieved, but this is a pattern that is showing that it's immaturity. It's a pattern that's being established of this guy thinks he deserves to start every single game, and there's undoubted potential there. There really is. I think he'll fulfill that somewhere else. But then to come out, and Ruben Amorim said some stuff about him as well, about him missing. I haven't seen the actual video of this, but he said something about him missing a chance in the semi-final, and that's just the way football is. That was unnecessary. I think there's suggestions that there's some kind of spat that's happened there, because Amorim hasn't ever really seen Garnacho as an ideal fit for his system. And Garnacho echoed what his brother said in a quote with media after the game. He spoke in Spanish. I played every round to help the team reach the final, and today I only got 20 minutes. I don't know. I'll try and enjoy the summer and then see what happens. The frustration is clear. I think he has a point. He does have a point, but at the same time, this is something that's happened loads of times previously, and that is not the right attitude. That is not the right way to deal with issues that you have with the football club. That is not the right way to win your place in a team. And ultimately, that kind of behavior just shouldn't be tolerated. I think that is a final straw for me. I'll keep mentioning this throughout unpopular sales. That one is probably, I think, the camp of people that were very pro keeping Garnacho. I think that probably has moved in the other direction to more where people can understand why United would make this sale now. I would be very surprised if he's at the club at the start of next season. There's a lot of options for him to go. Very good player. I think he will be a very good player in the future. He just isn't the right fit for the system. And United are in a position where they need to raise money. And that is just one that is jumping out of the page at you and screaming at you that's going to happen. So there's a lot of self-interest here. There's a lot of lack of professionalism. The attitude isn't right within the club. And I think even though he's right, even though Garnacho is right in this circumstance, he's right to feel aggrieved. The fact that he has gone about it the wrong way consistently with his communication of his frustration, I can't tolerate that. And they shouldn't tolerate that. There needs to be an establishment of the right attitude from the very top. And the whole crew of people who've come in, Barada, Wilcox, Amorim, all of those people, they have lost all their favor in 1 year. They've lost all their favor in 1 year, and they have a hell of a job to do in order to correct course here and to get United moving in the right direction. This season has been so bad that nobody anymore. Look, I'm one of the most trusting and one of the most optimistic in the long-term sense that I've really seen. Sometimes to a fault, but there's no reason, there's no justification at the moment. United have shown nothing over the past year, really, to make people believe that they will be back. If you're down, you're thinking there's every reason to think that United are finished completely. I don't think that's the case. I think that eventually, I don't know how long it'll take, but eventually they'll get it right. But the amount of pain in the middle of this and the amount of difficulty Nobody could have expected this. And I think the people who've overseen this mess happening deserve massive criticism for this. So I don't think anybody who's feeling like they want to criticize is unjustified in this case. It is completely valid. There's a cultural problem here. And ultimately, the only people that can fix this are the people that have now established control. And they didn't. It's still the case that I don't really think they could have corrected that in January, but we will see. And I'll get more of an idea over the course of the summer by how ruthless they are about how much they mean business and how much they can actually change this team. If there's a summer goes by and you see like 5 players leave and 4 or 5 players join, oh, that's not enough. That's not enough. Ruben Amorim can have his preseason. They can bring in. They can work on the preseason patterns and the right energy and getting up to fitness and this kind of thing. But fundamental, massive change in personnel needs to happen. They need to find the root cause of this, the root issue of this, and just remove it. But it's their job to identify what it is, where it comes from, and correct course. They have a lot to do. They have a lot to do. And Bruno Fernandes, captain, had a great season individually in the context of what the season has been. He's been United's player of the season. There's no doubt about it. But when players and your captain is speaking like this, I've always said I'll be here until the club says to me that it's time to go. I'm eager to do more to be able to bring the club back to great days. In the day that the club thinks I'm too much or it's time to part ways, football is like this, you never know it. But I've always said I'll keep my word in the same way. If the club thinks it's time to part ways because they want to cash in or whatever, it is what it is. Sometimes football's like this. That to me is, I said a few weeks ago, I could see this happening. You see the interest from Saudi Arabia. Bruno Fernandes is 30 years old, 31 years old. He might have an opportunity to stay and to build United back. But at the same time, if I'm a football club in desperate need of money and I'm seeing that even the guy that bails you out time after time didn't deliver in the biggest game of the season, maybe that's unfair criticism given what he's done this year, but I don't know I don't know if he's the right fit in the 10. I don't know if he's the right fit in central midfield. His performance in central midfield on that night was poor. He was poor. And he wasn't the only one. That everybody was, mostly. He's another one of the players I don't think has an actual perfect fit in the team that they're trying to build. And I think the most important thing out of all of this is that United, as quickly as possible, get to a point where they have a group of players, as many players as possible, that are there for the right reasons, that are there to run themselves into the ground, that have the right amount of technical quality, that fit in the system, that are younger. United leaders, and I do worry. If Bruno Fernandes is the one that's going to leave. God, like if you think it's low now and you're seeing some of the players that are leaving over the course of the summer that you think are the ones carrying United on their backs, it could get worse before it gets better just because of the personnel that will leave. They have a lot of difficult decisions to make. They need to create a bit of wiggle room that the Champions League and qualification for that would have given them. That's not there now. There's no European football next season. No money to come with it. So you got to find it from somewhere. And we'll see what happens. We'll see the developments over the course of the next few weeks and understand really who's going where. But nothing's off the table, guys. Not even Amorim's position. I wouldn't be surprised. Given how bad it's been. I think they will back him, obviously. And I think that he does have a lot of merits in what he's been saying. And he said he understands what the problems are, but he hasn't been able to really fix them over the course of the time that he's been there. The proof will be in the pudding over the course of the summer. How ruthless will United be? They need to be ruthless. They need to get players out who've just been sat there for ages not delivering. Some of them are out of contract, some of them are perma injured, some of them are earning lots of money and not justifying their cost. Get the wage bill down, rid the rid this team of whatever this problem is. I have some ideas of what it is, but I'm not inside the club. Obviously, this is just me observing what I'm seeing and observing the attitudes and seeing what the players are saying. Difficult one, man. Really, really tough. And just incredibly disappointing. It really, really, really incredibly disappointing. And now United have a game against Villa. I think there's protest planned. If you're going, make sure your voice is heard and demonstrate just how unacceptable this is. And then United are going on a postseason tour across the other side of the world where they're playing a couple of friendlies for 8 million quid or so. Embarrassing. Absolutely embarrassing. And I understand the reasons why they're doing it, but it's like a parade of, hey, look how bad this season's been. So we're going to come across and show off on the other side of the world. That must be embarrassing for the players and for everybody involved, but that's what it is. Look, I'm sorry, guys. If you got to the end of this, then sorry, not your usual kind of never too high, never too low self. But it's important at times to realize just how difficult a position this is, and to speak honestly about it. I always speak honestly. I always try and reflect and see the positive, and there will be opportunities for United to come out of this that United will have to use to their advantage, but they'll have to make a series of very, very good decisions in order to maximize that advantage of not playing every 3 days. But one thing's for sure, like there is pressure on now. They have to get every decision right in the transfer market, in terms of sales, in terms of incomings, in terms of results on the pitch. The favor that Ruben Amorim had, and he said this himself, but the favor that he has effectively gone. The results haven't been good enough. I need to start next season like a house on fire, but can you see that happening at the moment? You can't. But look, I'll definitely be back for more pods because there's so much to talk about. I've spoke about some of the players that could be leaving. But I just wanted to round up my emotion after that and just talk a bit honestly. I haven't really had a running order here. Just wanted to come here and talk frankly about what I've seen and how it's. Look, football is meant to be, and United especially, for millions and millions of people around the world, football is supposed to be an escape from the difficulties of life. It's meant to be a moment to go and enjoy yourselves, and this football club is just not providing that and hasn't been providing that for a long time. So it's hard to really have any hope for the future. I'll definitely be back, and I'll definitely provide some positive outlooks on things as we move forward, because I think, like I say, there are opportunities to come out of this. But United have lost the Europa League final, and what happens from here is uncharted territory. It really is. Don't know what's going to happen next. But whatever it is, this has to be it. This has to be as bad as it gets. Simply has to be. Because what else? How much worse can it get after this? You dread to think. People have got to do their jobs properly. They've got to start acting now. And yeah, I'm sorry, everyone, for that poor excuse of a performance, and this poor excuse of a season. But look, people might need a break from this. My advice is, what I try and do is just try and escape it as much as possible. Don't think about it. Don't let it affect your mood too much, and just move past it. Return to it. Look, on the plus side, United have the entirety of next season, and we have 8 fewer games to watch this pathetic version of Manchester United play football. One silver lining for you anyway. But look, if you've been to Bilbao and you're on your way back, well done for going out there and supporting the team, because this is a team that's not delivering, and this is a football club that is not holding up their end of the bargain at the moment. So, look, get in touch in the comments. Subscribe on Apple, Spotify, and on YouTube as well. Get in the comments. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you on the next one. I'll be back pretty soon to talk about some developments, because there's going to be a lot happening over the course of the next few weeks. This has been the Promised Land podcast with me, Scott Saunders. The Promised Land is a long way away at the moment.